Hello, if you don't know, I'm currently making a game called Idle Fisher, where the premise is to fish, upgrade, and idle. And I'm finally happy to announce that the game is on Steam, but only to wishlist. So if you can go over there and wishlist it, that'd be awesome. The link is in the description. Okay, back to the video. Remember these things, the auto fishers? I know it's been a while. For a quick reminder, these are machines that automatically fish for the player. But right now, the player has to collect fish from them manually, which is boring because it's an idle game. I'm not here to play the game, I'm here for the game to play itself. So here's this guy. His job is to collect the fish from the auto fishers. He will walk back and forth going from the auto fisher to auto fisher. Then he will return to the dumpster and sell all the fish for the player. He has a few different stats that can be upgraded throughout the game. The first stat is the carry capacity. This is how much the fish transporter can carry in a single trip. The number is based off of the currency of the fish and not the number of the fish. So higher level fish will take up more space inside the fish transporter's bag. If the fish transporter gets full before collecting from all the auto fishers, then he will make an early return to the dumpster. His next stat is how fast he can collect all the fish from the auto fishers. I currently have it set up so that it takes a certain range of time depending on the percent fullness of the fish transporter's bag. If the fish carrier can only hold 100 currencies and the auto fisher has 100 currencies, then the load is 100%, which means it will take 5 seconds for him to fully collect all the fish. If the auto fisher only had 1 currency or 1% of his max load, then it would take 1% of 5 seconds or 0.05 seconds for him to collect all the fish. And his final stat is how fast he walks. I don't think I need to explain this one. The fish transporter will also give the player offline earnings. Before, these earnings were just calculated inside of the auto fisher for the player to collect when they came back. But the auto fisher would fill up pretty quickly. With the fish transporter, you can continuously work non-stop to keep the profits going. I found this to be a little hard to calculate, and I don't think I did it entirely correctly, but anyways, this is what I got. Right now, there is a function that runs once on startup, if the fish transporter is purchased. Its single parameter is how long it's been since the last save. From there, it will get a total sum of what the uncapped profit is of all the auto fishers. Then it will calculate how long each run is, starting at the dumpsters, then going to each auto fisher, then back. This is where it got a little confusing. I need to know how many fish there are in an auto fisher at that moment, then collect the fish. But the more fish, the longer it takes. The longer it takes, the more the auto fisher can fill up, making it take longer. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know how to calculate how long the average run would take. So instead, I did it based off the max time it takes for the auto fisher to collect the fish, and how long it takes for the auto fisher to walk around the loop. Then I did some math to calculate how much profit the fish transporter gave the player, and how full the auto fisher should be. The fish transporter is something that the player needs to unlock. So sorry, but you'll have to actually play the game at the beginning. He could be unlocked by talking to the mechanic. Once purchased, his shop will look a little different. This is where you can upgrade and view all the stats that the fish transporter has. Each upgrade will increase the max hold amount that he can carry, while only every few other upgrades will increase his walk and collect speed. Someone said walk? Yeah, I did. Well, what a great segue into how the fish transporter navigates to each auto fisher and back. No, it really wasn't. One of the most important things that the fish transporter can do is walk around. I guess I could have made him have really long arms to grab the fish from anywhere. That could have saved me a lot of work, but I guess I have to make the game look good or something. So instead, I gave the fish transporter a pathfinding algorithm. I used a popular algorithm called A*. I'll try to explain how it works quickly. In this case, I am using a grid for the fish transporter to navigate through. He has a start and end position. The start position is kind of obvious, it's where he starts. And the end position is where the auto fisher is. This does update once he's done with the auto fisher, but let's not worry about that right now. The algorithm then calculates all the neighbors of the start position. Each neighbor has 2 numbers, the G cost, which is the distance from the start position, and the H cost, which is the distance from the end position. Then these 2 numbers are added together to make another value called the F cost. We then look at the F cost of all the green squares and find which one is the lowest. Then it gets selected and the process is done again. Now we have more neighbors, with even more F costs. The algorithm keeps selecting the lowest cost until it has reached the destination. Wow, that was a pretty simple algorithm. But aren't there supposed to be obstacles? Otherwise I could just make the fish transporter walk towards the final destination without all the complex math. Okay, well let's add some obstacles real quick. Then, with what we know, let's run the algorithm again. Now there's a little bit of a problem. if we go here, we could see that there's multiples of the same f value. So what do we do next? Well, this is pretty simple. We look at the lowest h cost, or the closest square to the n position. Okay, well that didn't help. The neighbors of this square just went up in f cost. Now we look anywhere on the board for the lowest f cost, and continue to do that until we have reached the end. Then to get the final path, we track back from the n position, looking for the lowest f cost of each neighbor. Great, now we have a working pathfinding algorithm. Now all we need to do is just make the character follow the path. This is relatively simple. Since our pathfinding algorithm gives a list of cells to follow, we could just move the character towards the first cell in the list. Then once the fish transporter gets close enough, we remove the current cell from the list, and this process is repeated until the path list is empty. When the list is empty, it means we have reached our destination. But I said earlier that the start and end path update as the fish transporter finishes his path. He then changes his start position to the current end position, then his new end position is then the next autofisher. He does this until he runs out of autofishers to go to, then returns back to the dumpster to sell all the fish. Then the process is repeated forever and ever and ever. No days off, no lunch breaks, no sleep, just pure work for the player's profit. Some of you might be wondering why I used a pathfinding algorithm instead of just putting predefined points down that the fish transporter could just walk to. And to this I say, I don't really know. Currently, I'm also using a pathfinding algorithm on the pets, so they could follow the player without going through walls, but this really isn't that big of a difference. Okay, maybe it is. The pathfinding works pretty great and doesn't really use any FPS until I step outside the valid pathfinding squares. You see, my game is an isometric and squares, well, they're squares. This means that there are some gaps that the player can walk into that aren't valid for the pets to go through. So the algorithm isn't able to get to the end position. Let me show you an example. If I put the end position inside an obstacle, then we go through the algorithm like we did earlier, you can see that it checks every location on the map. This isn't a huge problem and it doesn't visually change anything, because the pet just stops moving. But the problem comes from how bad it tanks the FPS. Since it now has to check every square on the map, the FPS drops horribly. To fix this, all I had to do was just test if the player was on a walkable square or not. If the player wasn't on somewhere the pet could be, then the program just wouldn't calculate a path to it. If any of you are still left after that long explanation, then I'm going to assume you probably enjoyed the video. Oh, and make sure to wishlist my game on Steam, as it would help me out greatly. And in the meantime, while you wait for the game to get released, you can watch this video if you haven't yet.